So that is what it might look like tomorrow. If you have the process on the screen, maybe we can quickly run through it. The process, the video that we had produced, the animation that we produced for the benefit of our viewers, so they have a sense of what it's all looks like. We'll give you that in a moment. But Ijoma, Ladi, the complexity of our election, multi-party system, is it gone too far or is it just okay? What do you think?
I don't know.
Actually, I mean, if you ask me, I think it's gone too far. For our level of development, for our capacity in terms of logistics and all of that, and then for the level in terms of where we are, even for the democratic process itself, for most people, this is just further confusion. When you have 6, 12 parties, there was already a significant amount of confusion. But now you have 91. For many people, I remember there was one of these comedians who put up something and said, look, how many of you can identify even half the symbols of the political parties? Nobody passed. Nobody passed that test, because once you've removed what we call the big five, essentially, most people don't know what the symbols of the rest are. They may have heard of one or two of the others, but they don't, which also leaves you open with the option of someone saying, oh, look, okay, this looks like that man's party.
Absolutely.
You tap it, drop it, only for you to leave and discover that it was, that's not.
If you look at this, if you look at what I've studied is that if you look at the 91 political parties, you have a whole lot of them that have square-shaped design.
Like flags.
Yeah. And because of our orientation as a nation, what we have built our democracy and our civilian operation on, it does look like there are symbols that are
related.
Running around almost all the. If you look at it, there are a lot of at least 5 of them look alike.
Yeah, without
similar colors. You see a whole lot of green running around. Then it comes to the fact that the rural voters, the similarly uneducated voter, how would they be able to have their way around this ballot paper?
Is that why you see a lot of party agents, you know, before people get into the smaller cubicle? Because not the whole polling unit is secret. You find them trying to remind people of what their logo looks like in the past.
But you cannot do that.
Before 91.
You cannot do that anymore.
In the election area, you can't do voter education any longer. It's over. You cannot prevail because what happens is just, let me make an example of this. So you look like the electoral officials. On the election day, you have the ballot papers and all the equipment, and you have the guys who are the party agents on one side. They're just standing aloof. Their business of the day is to just represent their political party. Just observe, basically. And so there's no interference between the voter who is ready to vote, the process, and the ballot paper. So the voter comes, goes here, takes his ballot paper, no interference
whatsoever. Heads in the other direction.
And exits in the other direction. And one thing that is going to be important tomorrow in the Ekiti election and the Austrian election, you know, when we were talking about the issues of vote buying, INEC did say, how are we going to make sure that vote buying is curbed around the election, around the voting area? So they say, we're going to keep the ballot. I will try to get a sample of a ballot box into the studio. Stay with us, a specimen ballot box into the studio, maybe later in the evening. So we give you a sense of what it might look like. Tomorrow also, we'll take you through all of this process.
It's good that you should do that, because online you have people saying, oh, the presidential ballot box is red and the one for the senatorial is green or another color. So it's good for us to actually put that
We have all of the analysis tonight. It's going to be a very interesting show tonight, I promise you. We'll give you a sense of what are you going to be doing there, how long it might take. If you're going to vote, if you're on the queue, just when you get in front of the official, how long can it take you, averagely, from the last few elections? So,
we already debunked the one where we're talking about you go there with your torchlight, other forms of identification, the power bank for your batteries, and then lose change in case you have to. None of this is needed.
No. So, INEC this year at the time, the ballot box, the way it's usually placed. So when people voted at the time, so when they vote, they raise it up to say, the man who is going to pay, look at, I've voted for your party.
That's right.
So that's how vote buying thrived, you know, at the time. So INEC said, no, that will not happen. So they turned the cubicle the other way around. So when you enter through this way and stay at the back of the cubicle. and vote there. So even if you raise it, you won't be able to raise it high enough for anybody to see it. So that was one way they tried to make sure they curb issues of vote buying in the last election. We see people around the voting area who are waiting in the wings to pay money for votes and all of that. But that process looked like it worked. And the same thing, it was the way what the INEC did in Bayelsa election, the governorship election, when they discovered that election goes into the mid of the night. So that's why they created the simultaneous voting and accreditation.
Do you think people will be able to buy anything to eat on election day? Because you remember, that story that came out, it could be food vendors that are, propagating vote buying. Absolutely. So what did they do about that? And if it takes longer than one expects, it's not something you want to start packing food to the polling unit. Are you going to be able to get anything around?
Interesting. On the day of election, when we cover election, on your way to the voting area, you usually see little boys playing football across the street. You see food vendors across the street. You see a lot of people. It's another opportunity for people to buy and sell. I don't know how INEC wants to do it in such a way that you will say people should not buy food or sell food, because a lot of people, they don't have the polling units very close to their houses. Because I have a feeling that between 1,000 and 1,500, that's the maximum of a polling unit. So it's 1,000. So it might be about a kilometer away from your house. And if you leave your house around 7 a.m. or 7:30, you probably had not had breakfast. So you stay until 2 p.m. when voting should be over.
People are being encouraged. It's going to be interesting to see how it works. Because people are being encouraged to hang around and wait until the votes are counted, the result is announced, and it is pasted on the wall, and that you can even take your phone. I was listening to the earlier segment today where it was made clear that the only place you can take your phone into is the cubicle.
Yeah, the voting
so that you can then take a picture to be able to show to somebody this is how I voted. But you can't keep your phone in the general area, which means that you can use it in that general area. Now, the point is, you put the result on the wall or on wherever it is the booth is, you take a picture of it so that for your own record, this is where I voted, this was the result. So when the eventual result comes out, you can compare that with what was recorded in your own area and all of that. But if you're going to wait for that entire process, you leave home at 7:30.
2, 3, 4.
It doesn't. The voting does not end at 2, because that's the other thing I found out.
Yeah, the process is supposed to the accreditation process is supposed to terminate at 2.
At 2.
So if there are people who have not voted,
but
they are doing accreditation and voting at the same time.
So this is what happens.
So that means
you have a long list of those. Who
no, it doesn't mean everything ends at 2. You know, whoever is on the queue as at 2 must be allowed to vote.
Yeah, that's the idea. So you find in some areas that voting, the exercise is assumed to end at 2. It's assumed to end at 2. So if you are on the queue at 2 p.m., usually you see the voting officers
stand behind the last
person. After this person, no person joins the queue
anymore.
So hopefully logistics will go fine. That's a prayer.
Yes, but no matter how well the logistics go, this entire process we just described, can take you to mean that you will still be in the polling area until about 4:30. The original issue which you were trying to raise was the issue of food. And how you refresh yourself during the period.
It will be an opportunity for neighborhood vendors, to make some...
That's before you get to the polling booth?
Neighborhood people who live around there, especially those who have small shops here.
Yeah, which was my original question. Is that allowed?
Because that was the original
question.
Let me give you somewhat a practical experience. And we have a video to show for this anyways. In some of the elections that we covered, China's television captured people who are giving money out to people. And this is just about 30, 40 meters away from the voting area. So it's just outside of the secondary school where the election was happening,
taking place
at the day. So we saw police officers who rounded them off and tried to arrest them. So the big question is that, can you find people who are legitimately just sharing money? So they define themselves.
Food.
No. This one, we saw them sharing. They took monies from them. we have video of this, and they took money from them.
But
so the big question is, when INEC said there are plans to use food vendors to buy votes, they solicit for vote buying. It's a difficult task. That's what I want to
So the question, the other side of it is, so what happens if I decide I'm coming from my house? For instance, I'm not in the studio. I'm going from my house to cast my vote, and I carry 3-4 bottles of water.
Right.
And I get to the polling unit. By the time I'm done, I see John, I see Laddie, and I say, okay,
share with me. Just like if somebody, at that time you heard a lot of bus drivers say, oh, it was my impress for fuel or something like that. How do you
That's why I was holding money.
Yeah. So that's why I said it's a difficult one. So those guys they arrested could say, look, we were just sharing. I'm a philanthropist.
We're being helpful. We're just being helpful.
We're just being helpful to those who have stayed.
The other side of it,
is a tricky one, isn't it?
One may need to consider going back to what Ijoma talked about earlier, which is that as you are going, you take whatever it is you need from your home.
So you don't get stranded.
Because even though we have still not resolved whether it is legal or illegal, but if you get there and it turns out to be illegal, you face it with a long walk back home.